You are the live sector, and I told this would be a live audience, and this was the LIVEX thing, so I think we need a little bit more life. Let's try that again. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, that's a little better. I can work with that. I've been learning about the largest export business in the world in the 1700s was ice. And I don't mean methamphetamine. I mean actual frozen water. We used to cut it out of lakes, stick it on ships, and take it to the equator. This was like the Microsoft of the 1700s. It was a massive, massive business. And whatever survived the journey would end up in the drinks of rich people. Massive business. Until the early 1900s, when we invented the ice factory. We figured out that we didn't need to ship this stuff. We could actually make it in buildings. We could get the formulas. Ice was pretty easy to make, and we could make this thing in massive amounts, and you could just get the thing locally. That was a huge industry. So have a guess, and this will be the audience participation part of the session here. Have a guess, what percentage of companies made the transition from shipping the thing to manufacturing the thing? Just call that, have a guess. Zero, absolute zero. And why is that? Because we're shipping people, we're not manufacturers. They didn't realise they were in the cold business or the ice business. They thought they were in the ships and ponies and train business. They were very wedded on how we did the job, not why people needed us. So ice factories were huge until the 1930s when we invented the domestic refrigerator. Now we could make this stuff at home. It didn't have to come from a factory, and it didn't have to come from North America. So what percentage of businesses do you reckon made the transition from manufacturing ice to manufacturing ice technology? Zero. You can see a pattern emerging here, can't you? Because guess what? We make ice, we don't make ice machines. So guess what happens? We get stuck in a way of thinking. And the thing is, technology comes along and says, hey, here's another way that you could do it. Are you interested? I can remember arguments with the newspaper companies back in the 80s, that's how old I am, where they weren't sure whether they were in the news business or the paper business. Guess which ones survived? The ones who thought, hey, it's about the news, it's not about the paper. And the thing is, every time technology changes, customer expectations change with them, because now we're expecting other things. Did you hear this at all yesterday? We're now saying, why can't it be like this? I've seen little children, only this high, stand outside shop windows, put their fingers on the window and do that. What is happening in the mind of that 4-year-old? Right? And then when nothing happens, they do this. They're going, why isn't it like this? Why isn't it magical? And of course, the funny thing is, that's what I see happening out on the street. But when I go out into boardrooms, it's a whole other story. Because at the end of the oak table where we all sit in deliberation, there's a big oil painting, usually of the last guy to have an idea. And I shit you not, he's got like a monocle and mutton chops. That's the thing. Your business model from the 1870s has a use-by date. You just can't keep grooving on the same thing. And if the world is changing faster on the outside than on the inside, then we have a little bit of a challenge ahead of us. Does that make some sense? Now, there's nothing here that you haven't already heard. Every keynote speaker you've ever heard will get up and say, we live in a changing world. That's what every keynote's about, really. Honestly, I've done hundreds of them. I've never seen anyone go, wow, we live in a changing world. Nice, didn't know that. I better write that down. So my interest is, what are you supposed to do about that? How are we supposed to make change work for us? And that's really what I want to deal with now. So let's talk about how do you embrace change? Because some people are just better at it. So what's the skill set? What's the mindset that makes them think, I don't care what's coming along, I can cope with it? Would you guys be interested in that? I'm loving the energy. Okay. In Kentucky, there is a place called the Corvette Museum where they show restored sports cars from the 1960s. It's very, very popular. A couple of years ago, a giant sinkhole opened up in the middle of the museum, swallowed $8 million worth of car, and totally trashed them. That would be a disaster in anyone's business. And the museum goes, it's over. It's over. We'll never make the revenue to fill the hole, let alone restore the damn cars. I think we better pack it in. And they noticed the next morning, the crowd outside the front door was 20 people deep. They wanted to see the hole. This was way more interesting to people. I mean, the Corvette Museum did well, but the hole was fantastic. And all of a sudden they decided either we're going to say, no, we're not a whole tourist experience, we are a car museum, or they could literally reinvent their business as a whole and say, this is what we are. This is what happened. Visits went through the roof. Revenue went through the roof. suddenly they embraced the horror and they said, this is the new normal, I better learn how to do this. As a friend of mine has a saying, it's only kinky the first time. After a while, you go, I can go with this, right? Their website, guess what? They've now made enough money that they have built a separate theatre called the Sinkhole Experience, where people go to relive the moment when the floor collapsed. People pay extra to see the trashed cars. They buy dirt from the hole at $10 a jar. I shit you not, this is actually how this works. So what's the mindset of people who go, okay, this is the way it is, let me get over this, let me hang on to this, as opposed to, this isn't what I was set up to do. This isn't what we do around here. Okay. So funny thing about this, you know, cheese was not invented by anyone. You'll never find the story that in 1812, Sir Thomas Cheese decided, no. Cheese was just food that went off and we ate it anyway. Right, that's how we found dates, that's how we found raisins and sultanas, it's how we found champagne, it's how we found America. We were actually trying to get to India. If you look at the history of innovation and change, you're going to realise that most of our biggest aha moments were accidents. They were not things we set out to find. And so when you ask, how do entrepreneurs and inventors and discoverers and innovators think, the one thing I would tell you about them is that they are curious, they are open. They don't tend to make up their mind about whether something is good or not. They just go, this is interesting. There's a beautiful quote from Pasteur, who, wasn't really looking for pasteurization but found it anyway. He said, a discovery is an accident meeting an open mind. If you think about 3M, what's the most famous product that 3M ever made? The Post-it notes. I'm loving the audience engagement. Post-it notes. Although you're a plant, I can tell. Post-it notes. Now think about this for a second. They're an adhesives company. Their most famous product is a glue that didn't stick. Just get into that for a second. I want you to imagine the moment in which someone runs up to the supervisor and says, "Boss, I've discovered a glue that doesn't stick." What would be the response in any other organisation? "Damn it, Johnson, we make glues that stick. Go back to the lab." But 3M, they go, "Cool. Let's see what this thing could be." So there's a kind of an openness, a willingness to embrace. The history of our civilization were things that were supposed to happen but didn't, or things that weren't supposed to happen but did. And there's maybe one individual in 1,000 that goes, "Okay, that's interesting, let's take this for a spin." You know what made Steven Spielberg famous? He made a shark film in which you didn't see the shark. You know why you didn't see the shark? Because the shark didn't work. It was the major cost of the production was this stupid rubber shark called Bruce. And its eyes rolled and its teeth wobbled. It looked like crap. And he's sitting in the edit going, "I'm not going to be able to show you the shark. What am I going to do?" The editor said, just cut around it. We'll sort the shark stuff out later. Well, they never sorted the shark stuff out. The thing never actually worked. So guess what? When they released the film without the shark in it, critics called him the new Hitchcock. Genius. You don't see the shark. It's scarier if you don't see the shark. And it's only 30 years later Spielberg went, "Yeah, because the shark was shit. That's why that was." Sometimes what looks like a problem is actually a better way introducing itself to you. You say, "You know what? If you can't keep doing this, if it's not quite working, maybe there's a better way," and maybe it pops up and introduces itself to you occasionally. So I want you to imagine, I love it when little kids fall over. I know that sounds mean. If you know they're running, and then bam, they fall over. There's like this beautiful few seconds where the kid doesn't know what to make of what just happened. Have you been there? They're in this amazing limbo space. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for a reaction. They're waiting for a signal. Could be from the parent, could be from the marketplace, could be from the media. They're waiting for someone to tell them what this means. So what happens if the parent says, "That was very funny, wasn't it?" What does the kid do? Laughs, gets up, throws themselves on the ground harder the next time, because this is sheerly comedy gold. But if the parent goes, "Oh my God, are you okay?" How does the child react? "I don't think so." It's this weird thing, but there was a moment there where we didn't know whether the new thing was good or bad. All we knew was that it was different and it was interesting. And that's what innovators do. That's what entrepreneurs do. I don't have to make up my mind. I don't have to embrace every single freaking change that comes along. Most of them will be rubbish. So I don't have to keep reinventing everything because some things are completely fine anyway. And I don't have to be afraid because something new is happening. I will just stay neutral. I will just stay interested. Does that sound like a more sustainable point of view to you guys than madly embracing every shiny new thing or being terrified of every shiny new thing? What would you say, yes or no? Yeah, it's so much easier to go, okay, let's play with this for a while. Let's see if this is the new normal. So I want to talk about innovation because I've just talked about how you embrace change. Now I want to talk how you drive change, how you make change happen. I'm meant to be like, innovation guru. And for me, these 7 words tell you everything I know. Innovation's about making things better. That's all it is. The first 3 words, make things better. Is there anything that you as an industry would like to make better? Yes or no? Great, you're in the marketplace for innovation. The last 4 words, though, are the catch. By making things different. We can't make them better by keeping them the same. Think about that, that makes no sense. We're going to have to be prepared to change something. Everyone loves the first 3 words. All of my clients want to make things better. You know when they arc up, we're going to have to change things. Geez, I don't know about that. Cast your mind back to when you first joined the industry. You were probably just a little kid, and they said, welcome to the industry, here's how it works, here's how we do things. Be honest with me, because I know the truth anyway. How many of you think to yourself, you have got to be kidding me? This can't be how it works. Where are we? Show of hands. Really? Look, yeah, I know you won't admit to having a refrigerator, but I can see. You've all had that experience of, Jesus, is this how it works? This is nuts. How many of you have in the last 30, 40 years of your career had an idea? Who's ever had an idea, ever, in their life, ever? Oh, thank God, you were starting to worry me there for a second. Have you had an idea about what could have been better, what could have been smarter, what could have been better for the animals, better for you, damn it, better for Australia? Yes or no? Yes. And what would happen if you threw the doors open on Monday morning and said, behold, rejoice, my people. It doesn't have to be stupid anymore. I've been here for 10 minutes. I can see a better way. Why don't we do this? What response did you get? Let's do it together at the count of 3, shall we? 1, 2, 3. Nah, we didn't even rehearse that. And I knew that that was the answer because that is always the answer. That's been done. We tried that once in 1972. We couldn't use the fan for 3 weeks. That's never been done. I think that covers everything. Now's not a good time. It's a difficult period. It's an election year, Simon. You know what's going on here. And here's what I saw a director of nursing do. You're new here, aren't you, pet? So let's get some young people into the industry. Let's advertise wanted, creative, passionate people dedicated to really world's best practice in a go-ahead thinking, progressive industry dedicated to a sustainable future for our children and our children's children. That'll bring them in. We'll say, come to the organisation, come to the industry, make a difference, but don't change anything. Have you seen what that does to smart people? Have you seen how they disengage? They just go, well, fine, I'll keep my thoughts to myself. You might as well write an ad that says wanted, jaded, tired, angry, cynical, arse coverers, dedicated to maintaining the status quo in a faded and obsolete male totemic hierarchy. That would have been the job ad because, that's what we kind of produce. All right, so just because we change things, does it mean we made them better? Now, here's a technology that's undergone some change. You have the old paper roll, you've got the McDonald 240 hand dryer, that's the one that everybody does this with, and then you've got the sexy Dyson Airblade, the award-winning sexy Dyson Airblade. Now, in order to know whether something was better or not, we need to hold it to some kind of standard. Would you agree? Otherwise, we're going to think every new thing is better, which is dumb, right? So the School of Westminster Sciences in London got 250 doctors to wash their hands, which turned out to be the major achievement of the study. Once they had washed their hands, they did a little swab, and then got them to dry their hands using the different technologies. Now, let me give you a baseline. Paper towel removes 60% of the bacteria. So that was it. That was standard. That's your old school. So what do you reckon the one in the middle removes? Just call out. What percentage of bacteria do you think you removed with the McDonald 240? 10%, 20%? I'll give you a clue. It's a round number. It's a very, very round number. 0. And that's the good news. That's the best thing I can say about this. Because not only does it not remove any bacteria, it increases the bacteria by 2.5 times. Because apparently, if you warm E. coli slowly on damp hands, it grows up to be big and strong. Who knew? So that's what the kids these days would be calling an epic fail. Let's look at the Dyson Airblade, the award-winning Dyson Airblade with the HEPA filter. What percentage of bacteria do you think that thing removes? Just call out. Again, 0. Fortunately, it does a little better than McDonald 240. It only increases the bacteria by 42%, which I guess is a bonus, but it spreads it for 2 meters in all directions. So I guess the point I want to make here is that better is always different, but different is not always better. So we kind of just not get hysterical and think just because, I'm still bitter about that, just because it's a brand new shiny thing, it's the latest thing, it's the hottest thing, is it an improvement? And I think that you guys have between you probably just enough normal conservatism and skepticism to be able to have a slightly jaded view to say, I have tried things that were new, they didn't improve my business at all, change is not for me. But you got sold a counterfeit. You didn't get sold the real deal. So you've got to look at what does it actually do for you? How does it advance you? Okay, so let's get into this. It's not just about your product, right? Because what happens, we kind of obsess, I'm still bitter about that too, we kind of obsess about, is it just about I put a better thing out into the marketplace? But it's about a whole bunch of things. Do you know American Express was originally called American Pony Express? It moved physical bank documents by pony between one institution to another. How much of American Express has changed? It's still about the transfer of value from one place to another. We just don't have donkeys anymore. So what they've done is they haven't really changed the product or the offering. In fact, they're still working the same need that they had back in the 18 whatevers. You know, Domino's Pizza in New Zealand is now delivering by drone, right? Doesn't make the pizzas any better, but it's how we got them there that was different. So sometimes we can think the product's fine. Let's think about how the product gets out there. Sometimes we want to reimagine the workplace. You've probably seen Cirque du Soleil or heard of Cirque du Soleil. I bet none of you have gone to Cirque du Soleil, but you get the idea, right? The thing is, they've reinvented an art form, or a business really, that goes back to the Romans. Circus was a very old business. And they're going, I wonder if animal welfare might be an issue for circus. Maybe if we left animals out of this, we would get a much better deal. Yeah? Who remembers wrestling from the 70s? Yeah? Look at wrestling now. It's a completely different thing, except they still have the cage, the fake blood, the chair over the head. But what have they done? They've changed the audience, they've changed the ticket price, and they've added soap opera. It's the bold and the beautiful on steroids. And if you look at American wrestling, the rock and roll wrestling, the WWE is the only publicly listed company on earth where the CEO gets beaten up by his employees on cable television to up the share price. Genius. If you look at what this guy's done to classical music, and if you're a snob, you probably hate him, but if classical music was not your thing, he's found a whole new marketplace to say, if we got rid of the dustiness and the elitism and the stuffiness and made it fun and playful and silly, we'd bring in a whole new marketplace, which he's done. This guy's killing it, right? He's brought in this colour palette, which my graphic designer son refers to as tooth fairy vomit. It's this kind of, but you know, it works on the punters. We've now got 3 billionaires with their own private space programs. Now that's the big end of innovation. Is it time to rethink what we do? So I guess the point I'm trying to make here, innovation has scale. Not everything has to be Elon Musk size. In fact, the way I kind of think of it, I see 4 targets for innovation in any industry. So let's say the big end of town is, have you ever wanted to come up with a concept that completely transformed human history and civilization? Who's up for that by Friday? Any takers? Now, I'm thinking that's a little too rich for my blood, and I'm seriously into this stuff, but I'm never going to get to do that. Let's look at the next level down. Is there something that's beyond your experience as an industry, but other industries have tried? Other people have done this. Could we learn from people other than ourselves? What would you reckon, yes or no? Yeah, we could knock off ideas from other businesses. In fact, we're going to have a panel soon about risk, and we're going to learn from people who have never made a cow and never put one on a boat. How about this one? Is there anything that you guys are good at that you'd like to be great at? Yes or no? Yeah, now we're talking. That's a good place to start. And here's your Uncle Jace's favourite one of all. Is there anything dumb that we've always done that never made sense to anybody? We continue to do it. Maybe if we stopped doing it, it would be better. What do you reckon, yes or no? It's everywhere. Dumb is everywhere, and dumb is expensive. Here's my little bit of dumb. Next time you see a 5-cent piece, I want you to consider this, that if I took all the 5-cent pieces that all of us have, if I got 10 kilos of 5-cent pieces and then took them down to the local parking meter, how many seconds of parking do I get with this? 0. If I had billions of these, how much parking? 0. The shops don't want them. The banks don't want them. Machines don't want them. People begging for money on the street don't want them because I've tried. This thing is useless as a currency. But what if I told you we make more of these than any other coin? 80 million brand new shiny 5-cent pieces every freaking year. And you hold that thought because I haven't got to the incredibly dumb bit. Would you like to guess what it costs to make a 5-cent piece in this country? Close. Depending on the price of zinc, it can be as much as 8 cents to make a 5-cent piece. Now, I don't remember my 80 million times table, but I suspect that that's money we could have done something really smart with. Dumb is expensive. If you see dumb, it's the first place to look. What I'm learning about the Cattle Collective is we're telling our own stories. We're being transparent. Gee, that sounds like crazy talk to me. No, that actually sounds like that's a smart thing we should be doing as opposed to the dumb thing, which is don't tell anybody anything. Does that ring any bells with you guys? There are some easy wins to have in dumb. Let me give you a great example of this. In 2004, United Parcel Service stopped doing something which they didn't really need to do in the first place. And after 10 years, they did a study of the impact of that one thing. And that one thing, that one little thing that they stopped doing, didn't have to start doing a new thing at all, they stopped doing an old thing, it cut 30 million miles off their delivery routes. Look what it did to their CO2 emissions. Look what it did to their petrol consumption. And I haven't even told you about reduced accidents. I haven't even told you about reduced insurance. Does anybody know what UPS stopped doing in 2004? Stop turning right, because we would turn it right, it was the Yanks, they would turn left, but you totally get it. They stopped turning into traffic. Where's the governance required for that? How many signatures do I need to maybe just not do a dumb thing? That's the incredible thing. We become blind to what it costs us doing something that no one can remember why the hell we do it. Do you reckon there's room for movement there in your industry? Yes or no? You bet, I can smell it. Okay. So this is what one of my clients, Vic Rhodes, my different clients have different ways of thinking about innovation. And they're being road guys, they're geeks, they wrote it out on this whole thing. And they said, innovation freeway, multi-lane innovation freeway with on-ramps and off-ramps and roundabouts. I mean, I just love these guys. They took this idea and they said, okay, what if we looked at where are some ideas that we should just fast track? Let's not make a big deal, just get them out there. Where are some ideas where we want to be really careful that we don't screw up? And do we have different lanes for different things? So if we're going to change every damn thing, transform the world, confront the customer, repurpose the organisation or the industry, I'd say that's the big end of town. That's like change every damn thing. Whereas, you know what? Why don't we just talk about what we do? That sounds like we're stopping doing a dumb thing. They said basically the 4 things that we're concerned about as a conservative organisation. Who does it disrupt? What would it cost? What risks do we face? And how much control have we got? Does any of that sound familiar to you guys? Oh, but wait, I got more. Right? So they looked at the different lanes and they'd said we want a fast lane, a slow lane and a really, really, really slow lane. So let's just figure out, instead of trying to judge every idea like it's dynamite, let's find the ones that are no-brainers and get them out there. Let's be careful about the ones that, are tricky. I won't take you through this whole thing, but they basically worked out how they would define, let's go back, how they would define each of that criteria. So if I wanted to stop doing a dumb thing, and it would only really disrupt my local team, and it was cost negative, and it would actually release time or energy or money, and if the risk was this thing's been battle-tested and has always worked in the wild, and if the control was I could always stop doing this and put it back in the box it came from, that's a very, very different idea than something that's going to confront the outside world, be expensive, unprovable, and have a ripple effect that once it gets out in the wild, you'll never get it back. Do you see how they're different kinds of ideas? And the way the road geeks got onto this, I got so excited. They said, okay, express lane, we just want plenty of that. Let's spend 5 years finding stuff that we just should have done ages ago and just get it done, right? We can then maybe work up to some of the hard stuff, but you know what, let's just park that for a decade. There's so much to fix, and a lot of it is pretty simple and straightforward stuff with easy wins. It's UPS, don't turn left. And here's their big plan, and I think this is, it's gone weird, but you know where I'm going with this. This is their big plan. Let's just get 1 million little mopeds zooming down the freeway. If someone wants to move a frickin' house right over there on the left, that's fine, but be prepared to spend decades. Does this make some sense to you guys? It frees us up. It shows us where we can have change and where we can try new things. Areas where it doesn't matter if it doesn't work, but if it does, we win. And the funny thing is, show you how nerdy these road guys are, they're now said to staff, we're going to give everyone L plates. Everyone is a learner innovator. And once you get a couple of ideas over, put you on your Ps, see how you go. And if you can deliver this thing constantly for the organisation, we'll give you a full licence. We might even let you drive a double B. Do you love this idea? You give everyone a chance to start somewhere. Okay. So let's talk about how you make change happen. Who's ever had this idea or seen this and thought, Jesus, I'm pretty sure I thought of that? This is not what I would call a complicated genius move. We've taken two things that already existed and we stuck them together. I'm thinking that's just like an ad, right? But that's a $26 million stick wheels on a bag kind of concept, right? So do you think there's power in looking at your industry and saying, is there anything we need to add? Is there anything we could find from outside our universe, outside our world, that if we introduce this, it already exists, we don't have to invent it, we're just gluing it onto what we already have. Is there potential there? Let me show you a history of Victorinox, the people who made the Swiss Army knife. In 1891, that was their first model, right? It was called the officer's knife. It had 4 tools. By the end of World War II, they had come up with the Classic, which had 6 tools. And in 1991, they launched the Swiss Champ XLT, which had 26 tools. Can you see the strategy that happens at Victorinox? Can you see the thinking? Is there a theme? What question do they ask every August? What else can we put into a knife? Add, add, add. Do you think if you only had that one strategy, it's going to peak at some point? In 2006, and I shit you not, they launched the Giant. Let's just stick everything in there. Let's not leave everything out, because more is always better, right? When I see industries that are exhausted by change, that's what they look like to me. They're trying to be all things to all people. Let's get everything. Let's embrace everything. And we don't end up doing actually the core stuff as well as we should. Does that ring any bells with you guys? So guess what? If adding is a great tactic, but it's limited, what would be the most obvious complementary strategy that we could also have up our sleeves? What else could we subtract? If we had the power of taking away, is there anything we would take away from the industry or away from the idea? The same year that that first Swiss knife came out, this guy invented basketball. That's the original guy, the original basket, and the original ball. It was 2 peach baskets at the end of a gym. You would run around, throw the ball in the basket, stop, get a ladder, climb up the ladder, take the ball out of the basket, throw it back in the court, put the ladder away, game on. Great game. It was slow when people scored, but apart from that, great. He looked at a billiard table and thought, aha, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a bigger version of a billiard pocket, still with the bottom in it, and it's going to have a little cord, and you pull that and the ball will pop up. You don't need a ladder, but you will need a hook on a stick to reset the net. It was 21 years before anyone thought of cutting a hole in the basket. And I'm pretty sure that for 21 years, here's how people played basketball. Really? Yeah, shut up, you're new here. That's the way it would have been. So sometimes we can improve what we do by doing less, by taking things away. What can we get rid of? What's not helpful anymore? What did Cirque du Soleil get rid of? Animals. Was that a good move? Oh my God, yes. I'm not suggesting you as an industry get rid of animals, clearly. But is there anything, maybe, but is there anything else you could let go of, right? Could you take 2 ideas and stick them together? Who's seen chess boxing? It's worth a Google, not now, when you go home, Google it, it's real. This thing is huge in Eastern Europe, right? A round of moves, a round of punching, another round of moves. It's incredible. What if you linked what you did to what someone else did? Is there another industry right next to you that you could kind of connect with? Okay, could you just turn it upside down? I am sure in your bathroom somewhere, probably in the shower recess, you have an upside down bottle of something. And you're thinking, for God's sake, why doesn't we just make the bottle upside down? Paul Brown's an inventor. He's having breakfast with his wife. He's bashing the sauce bottle going, someone should do something about this. She said, you're someone and an inventor, off you go, right? It took him 111 tries, but he sold the valve, not the bottle, just the valve, for $13 million. And one of the customers was NASA, who said this would be great in zero-gravity straws. We've all done the first bit on the left. We've all said this doesn't work. We've changed our behaviour, but we haven't changed what we're offering. What if you flipped it? When I was a kid, iPods were called boom boxes. Does anybody remember these things? The next generation would be heavier and dumber and more complicated. And one day Sony, who in those days made electric woks, thought, I wonder if anyone's thought of going the other way. Making them smaller, simpler, cheaper, lighter. Guess what? You go the opposite direction. There's something that we haven't looked and it's behind us. Most people will not admit to knowing what these blue pills are for. I'm told they're terrific. I'm told they're great. Does anybody know what Viagra was invented for? It's to increase the circulation around the heart. I want to stress that, the heart. What they found during clinical trials, old guys kept asking for refills. And that's when the manufacturers went, hang on, wait a second. Every single thing on this list was invented for a completely different reason than what we use it for. Did you know that? Right? The microscope was invented by the linen industry to inspect weaves. The umbrella was invented by the Japanese to keep the sun off, not the rain. Right? Listerine was a foot wash before it was a mouthwash. And here's one of my favourites. Splendor was intended to be an insecticide and arguably still is. Could you simplify it? Is it just too complicated? Too many bits, too many parts? I reckon I could do that one. Just to strip it down. Let's get rid of all the crap. Is there something if we just went back to the basics? Or could we reposition this thing, get people to see it in a new way? Let's not change the thing at all, but change the story that we tell. Does anybody know what a shreddy is? Who's had breakfast in Canada or England? What's a shreddy? You're gold. You're coming on the road with me, girl. What's the... I know they don't have fridges, but you're coming with me. What's a shreddy? It's a shredded wheat, little biscuity thing. It's a bit... Nice. It's a bit boring, but it's a little bit of a mainstay. It's like our Wheat Bix, right? About 10 years ago, the Canadian part of the business wanted to reinvent the shreddy, but they said, we can't change the product. Product's sacred, but I want people to get excited about shreddies again. This is what the agency came up with. I kid you not. New diamond shreddies. Sales went up 18% for the next 3 years. There were chat rooms where people argued. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I tend to like the square ones, whereas my kids, they like the diamond ones. They like it's new and it's modern. And after 3 years, the Canadians went, wait, what? And that's when the agency pulled its masterstroke, which I'm pretty sure was part of the campaign from the beginning. They said, breakfast is a time to be together. Let's not fight. You want square, you want diamond. Introducing the combo pack. Didn't change the thing at all. Just changed the way we looked at it. If you were to build this industry from scratch today, would you do anything different, yes or no? Yeah, I reckon you would. So pretend that you're starting from scratch. Pretend that it doesn't exist, and all you have is the need and the smartest people you've ever met. What would you do differently? It's what we call a square one. It's a beautiful way to reinvent what you're doing. And the thing is, this is something that Australians are really good at. You know, we punch way above our weight globally in terms of our inventiveness. Like most people know the jump stump plough and the hills hoist and the Victor mower, but we've invented the black box flight recorder, the refrigerator, the electric drill and the torpedo. Most people don't know that about us. We are really, really inventive people because we are irritable people. They say that necessity is the mother of invention, irritation is the father. Being slightly pissed off is actually how we create change. Does that ring some bells to you guys? If you say, oh my God, this is so freaking stupid, that's the beginning of the conversation. Why do we do it like this? Okay, so is every idea a good idea? No. Next time you're in the grocery aisle, check out Tim Tams. These people have lost their freaking minds. Right? They've come out, I swear to God, there is a cheese Tim Tam. What are they smoking over there? And here's the incredible thing. Talk to the retailer. What of these have they actually sold? Bugger all. Because they go, hey, great, it's an idea. Let's have $1 million and try a new thing. Steve Jobs says that innovation is about saying no to 1,000 ideas. But you've got to hear the 1,000 ideas to begin with. Do you know Lego almost committed suicide by innovation? They were terrified that technology had changed the expectations of their marketplace, that little boys were not going to play with blocks anymore because now we had Super Mario. They freaked out. And also the patent on their brick design had lapsed, and now the Chinese were making much cheaper knockoffs. So they said, we're going to have to innovate. We're going to have to really go completely to the moon. They tripled their offering. They used to make 1,500 little bricks. Now they're making 7,000 different kinds of brick. 7,000. And each brick, you've got to make a mold that costs $250,000. And you need a factory to make it happen. They went from 6 colours to 57 colours. Can you see how extensive that was? What a big risk that was. And not just the bricks. They said, we're going to get into fashion and jewellery and restaurants. We're going to have movie tie-ins. We're going to have theme parks. How do you reckon that went for Lego? This is a company that had never made a loss in its entire history. Okay? In 2002, less than 40% of the crap that they made did anyone actually walk out of a shop with. Right? They were just making no money. First loss in their history, and it was a big one. The next year, less than 6% of their products made any money at all. And here's the real kicker. They didn't capture a new market, and they pissed off the old market. So good move, deft. So then they decided, yeah, we should have a thing called controlled innovation. Let's just put some constraints around this thing. Let's just not go hysterical and do absolutely bloody everything. Instead of making new products, let's clean up our processes. Let's find better ways of delivering. Let's make sure that everybody in our supply chain makes a living. How about we do that? Let's get rid of all the waste. Let's get rid of all the dumb stuff we've already done. They said, let's clean up what was broken. Let's not change what was fine. And the CEO who turned this thing around, I love this quote, the more we were true to ourselves, the better this worked. We were so desperate to win people who didn't like us anyway, we kind of lost the people who liked us. Does that ring some bells? What is it that works? What have you got that's good? Let's protect that. Of course, where they are now is absolutely nuts. They were making more money than Apple at one stage. They're now last year, Europe's most trusted brand. That's a huge turnaround because they didn't just chase every shiny new thing because that'll exhaust you. Okay, let's wrap this up. So how do we lead change? Well, we lead change by empowering other people to make change happen with us and for us. If I'm too old or too traditional or too conservative to see the future, but I'm working next to someone who could see it, why don't I get the hell out of their way? How about I say, you know what, I got the business this far, tell me what's next. Would that be a good move? Instead of me trying to be the next wunderkind, maybe work with the wunderkind if they're there. The CEO asked me the other day, where are the great creative brains in this country? I said, well, around about now they're having play lunch. You've brought it this far. And that's not to say you can't contribute, but there are other people going, I've got an idea. And you told me, you confessed that this already happened. Someone comes in and says, how about this? And we say, that's not how we do things around here. What happens to the person on the left of that screen? What's their career going to look like? If we're not careful, we are very, very slowly but surely going to turn them into the person on the right. Every blocker I've ever met is a wounded idealist. It's someone who 20 or 30 years ago tried to shake this thing up, failed, and is now discouraging other people from trying. Does that ring any bells with you guys? Okay, I've got some good news for you in a second. Here's another way of looking at it. Let's have a third conversation. In fact, why don't we do this? If we get the bright people we've got around us, the shiny ones, and say, here's a problem that needs fixing. Show me how clever you are. If we gave that to people who are good at turning ideas into plans, do you know anybody like that? They're not necessarily the idea haver, but they're the ones that actually cook it into something that's workable. Look at the guy on the right, still looking for the risks, still looking for the dangers, still catastrophizing. Is that useful in that conversation? Yeah, you bet it is. It's just terrible when we go straight from ideas to how's that going to work. And what if we introduced a fourth brain into that conversation? Someone who says, can I just get on with it, please? Tell me what the risks are and get the hell out of my way. Do you have access to this kind of talent? What would you say, yes or no? Do we have idealists in the industry? Yes or no? Do we need them? Are we treating them nice? Yeah, not so much. How about that could be a stupid thing we stop doing? Have we got people with good technical knowledge that would know how to translate a new idea and plug it into an existing system? Yes or no? Do we need them? Are we giving them the time and the space and the resources to think? Probably not so much. Have we got people who are risk sensitive? They can see all the dangers, they can see all the problems. Yes or no? Do we need them? Are they running the show? Yeah, that's traditionally what happens. Have you got people who would just like to frickin' get on with it? They don't want any butcher's paper. They don't want any group hugs. Can we just frickin' get out and get it done? Have we got those people? Do we need them? You know, you can spot them a mile away. When you talk to them and they go, yep, 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 nup, 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 yep, 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 nup, nup, nup. That's a brain going, vroom, vroom, vroom. So let me package this up for you in a really simple way of looking at it. Imagine, develop, evaluate, act. This is the best thing that I've ever thought of. I've been grooving on this now for 30 years. I can't believe I'm getting away with it. If I was Mick Jagger, this would be satisfaction. It's a sequence of discussions. If you go straight from imagine to evaluate, you have premature evaluation. It means you haven't understood how this process works. Nobody wants that. And if we look at how do we turn these brains on, if you want to take a picture of a slide, this might be a good one to go, because up here I'm showing you what everyone has told me about what turns these minds on. Some of us want the freedom and the potential and the ability to ask why not. Some of us need all the information. Some of us need the evidence. Some of us just need a to-do list to get on with it. When I was one, the President of the United States said the strangest thing that anyone in that job has said until, recently. He gets up in front of 500 engineers and he says, I think we should go to the moon. That's about as far as I've thought this thing out. I'm off for drinks with Marilyn. Good luck, everyone. You set a goal. I don't know, 0 deaths on a boat. I don't know, make something up. Set a goal and say to smart people, get me there. How would we get there? Seriously, Marilyn's waiting, gotta go. Okay, if you're in trouble as an industry if you're asking this question. How can we sell what we've got? Can you smell the death in that question? It's a little better to ask maybe, let's find out what they want, but do they know what they want? Really? Steve Jobs, arrogant prick that he was, says it's not the customer's job to know what they want. I love that guy. The head of Sony said the customer doesn't even know what's possible. It might be better to start finding out what people need, but even that, the needs kind of change, right? This is the one I like. Let's know what they're going to need next. If they want sustainability, let's get it to them. If they want welfare, you guys want welfare, I'm sure we can find a place to work together. What do they need next? It's the only question that matters. So let's see if you're good at this. Tin food, how am I doing for time? 2 minutes, beautiful. Is that right? Is that making sense? Oh, what a team. Tin food was invented in 1810. I've just given you food in a tin. What do you need next? A tin opener. Well done. So would you imagine the tin opener was invented 1810 in 37 seconds? When was the tin opener invented, would you like to guess? 1858. There was a period, a market gap you would call, of some 48 years in which we did not think about how you're going to how you actually access the product. And the research that I've done suggests that the way we open tins, we use shotguns, axes, and hacksaws. You're like, just imagine, kids, dinner's on. And I'm pretty sure for 48 years there's someone going, really? Really? Yeah, shut up. That's how we do it around here. All right. These 3 products are the most successful products in the history of McDonald's. The Egg McMuffin, the Fillet of Fish, and the Big Mac. All 3 were invented by burger flippers. They did not come from head office. They didn't come from an association. They came from people who were standing right next to the customer when they realised the customer didn't want what was being offered. Does that ring any bells with you guys? The guy who invented the fillet of fish, he noticed that Catholics didn't eat beef on Fridays. He's thinking maybe something with a fish theme might work a little bit better. And the thing is, the closer you are to the customer, the more obvious what they need next is going to be. The further away you are, the more abstract that concept is. And I'm going to show you evidence of that. This is stunning. During the same time that was happening, here's what was coming out of McDonald's HQ. It was a chicken phyllo wrap. It was going to be healthy. This was their kind of approach to Subway. They spent about 3 years developing this thing, a lot of money, a lot of market research. But there was just a critical, fatal error in the product that none of the executives could see. None of the people sitting through the endless freaking meetings about this thing spotted this flaw. But the first 8-year-old boy to walk into a shop saw it within seconds. Let's say the name of the product together, shall we? 1, 2, 3. McCrap. They had just invented the McCrap. And you can see the problem. I wish I'd been in the meetings where people go, Oh, I think we're very excited about the McCrap. We're going to get some good results with the McCrap. And we might fill it up with like a bucket of shit to go with it. This is the thing. I have an announcement to make because every industry that worries about its future talks about the next generation. And you're a baby boomer, and you're Gen Y, and you're Gen X, and you're a millennial, whatever the hell that is. And we do this thing all the time, and it assumes that the only people that have fresh ideas about us will be kids. And sure, absolutely, they've got something to say. And then we say, well, it seems to be very white Anglo-male in here. We need more women, we need more colour, we need more diversity. Absolutely with you, absolutely agree with you. But do not underestimate the brains and the intelligence and the creativity you've already got. So tonight I want to launch a brand new generation. It's called Generation Why Not? And you can join just by having an open mind. If you're curious and opening and questioning, you can join. You can become part of Generation Why Not? We will not look at you strangely because of your gender or your age. All you have to do is to be curious and open. So I give to you Generation Why Not? Join us. Thank you very much.
Jason. Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm done.
No, you're not.
Oh, right.
Thank you, Jason. It's you've unclogged the minds as you promised you would, I'm sure, and left us with some amazing thoughts to think about and some ways forward that we ought to get engaged in.
Yeah,
obviously.
these guys are just turning up. They've missed the whole thing.
Have they? Yeah, oh, they're from Elders. You can't trust them. Yeah.
You guys should have been here 40 minutes ago.
I know one of them personally.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we've got time. We've got a very long morning tea to follow. Why don't we take the opportunity, if you wish, as an audience, to ask some questions of Jason?
I'd love it. Come on, bring it on. I know you've got fridges. I know you have voices. Let's hear it. Any questions or anything here that just sounds like, yeah, that's fine? Yes, sir. Hang on, here comes the microphone. Jerry. Here we go. Hi.
Great presentation. Thanks very much. It's fantastic. With your idea stuff, is that how does that relate to like that Edward de Bono, the six hats thinking?
It's really interesting. I think that's the box that the puzzle goes in. So I've looked at all of those systems and the things. So Myers-Briggs, Herman Brain, the different intelligences. It all says that there are some people who prefer the abstract and the big thinking, and other people who are more detail-oriented. You can take every single one of those models and fit them into that one. So in a way, what that does, instead of saying you're a red hat or you're left quadrant dominant or you're IFTP, it says, when do we want an imaginative conversation? When do we want a developing conversation? And so that's the thing. Those systems tend to put people into boxes. This system says, no, this is the spectrum of the discussion we're having. How far do you reckon you can take it? I've met people who are all four. I've met people who only like one or two. Does that make some sense? So this shows me how to use. You can take all of that stuff. This shows you how to use the differences between people, not get frustrated by them. Every psychological disorder is its own job description. The thing that makes people unbearable, that's their superpower. Does that make some sense? Great question. Any others? See, that's what I'm talking about. You. Let's go.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Sarah Hyland.
I know you're Sarah Hyland.
Oh, from Meat and Livestock Australia. One of the questions that I had is your opinion around investment. So all of the inventions that have come from Australia, great things like, casters on your furniture and Wi-Fi, as they call it in France, Wi-Fi. All those things are fab, but one of the biggest issues that innovators have in Australia is getting investment from corporations who perhaps would rather build flats.
Yes.
So what do you think is the cultural issue or the mindset that stops innovators from getting cashola from people who can really add value and grow that invention?
That's a beautiful question.
Isn't it?
That's great. I'm taking that one home. I reckon there's a couple of things. I think there's a little bit of the tall poppy thing, that we just don't think that we're smart. So we don't tend to value the brains that we already have. We think that Americans are smarter. I mean, go check the news. But we look at the other people and go, like they do it better in Finland. I mean, this is our thing. We tend to say we have an inferiority complex, I think, as a culture. I think that's part of it. Also, we don't like people getting above their station. Like, why do you think you're some fancy pants thingo? The other thing is, I don't think we've spent the time creating a culture of development. So we're terrible commercialisers. That's why most of our ideas run away. So we're very good at I, we are really good at E. We're very jaded, cynical people, and we're pretty good at A. Where we fall down is finding people and developing a culture that says, an engineering culture or an architectural culture that says, process this random stuff into something we can make sense of. Have you guys ever seen Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or any of those pitching shows? What you'll notice, this is what Australia does. We'll say, I've got this idea, I don't know how it works, but the universe spoke to me and I think the pixies will make it happen. That's total I. Nothing's happening in D. There's just crickets and, tumbleweeds. And then you've got us over here going, well, have you built one? Have you sold one? Where's the prototype? Have you tied up the Japanese IP? The answer is no. Game over. But look what happens if the inventor says, yes, actually, I have built some, I have sold some, I have tested this, and I have proven this. They take it to D. What do the investors do? They get up off their chairs and they walk across the floor and they shake their hands and they throw money at you. We've failed in this space. So we've encouraged creativity, we're great at it, and we've encouraged skepticism, we're good at that too. We're missing that bridge between here's the concept of the future and here's my decision to action. Did I answer that okay? I know. That's how I make the big bucks. Anything else? How are we for time? Good?
Yeah, good.
Oh my God. This is great. I'm loving it.
I've just got a question following on from that. So how do we build that bridge then?
Well, do you know this whole thing about STEM? That we're trying to say, look, understand science, technology, engineering and mathematics. I think we need to encourage more of that. And not just women, young people. We've got to start saying, how do we build ideas? How do we turn ideas into things? Has anyone ever done any brainstorming? Oh my God, it's terrible. Because what happens is, we throw all this stuff up on the wall. Who's been there? All the shit's on the wall, right? And you go, here's 10 million ideas. It's a shame they didn't come with the resources to make them happen. That's a fair point. But then at about 3 o'clock, someone says, this has been great. I've loved the thinking. What's the next step? No one knows what the next step is. We don't have the discipline to do the next step because we haven't trained people. We've encouraged creativity and we've encouraged business skills. We've missed this bit in the middle. So when we don't know what to do next, the guy at the front does this. See if you've been here. They'll say, we're going to gather up all the notes. We're going to type them up. We're going to make sure everyone gets a copy of every idea. And then I guess we'll never talk about this again. You can go to about 4 of those before you lose the will to live. But that's also why we have this massive consulting industry, because that's the bit that consultants get into. You give me your idea, I'll tidy it up a little bit, I'll give it back to you to evaluate. You lend me the watch, I tell you the time. That's the way that model works. But if we were to basically take innovators or creators, give them some more entrepreneurial skills. I work with programs that develop young entrepreneurs from just having an idea. No, we need to turn it into a business case. But then also talk to business about what you're missing by not seeing the potential of something that no one's tried yet. We need to close that gap from both ends. Did I do okay with that one? Great question.
I've got another one I'm going to
You're
annoy
watching
you
time
with.
because I don't care. Okay.
I think you just hit that on the head. So far, I've been involved in the industry. We've had about 3 iterations of trying value-based marketing.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and we're still struggling to get it across the line.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in our lifetime, we'll see it.
That's right.
But I'm bloody not sure. And it'd make so much sense. Yesterday was a great conversation about the live export industry and the local industry and the export industries. We're all talking the same language,
That's
and we
right.
bloody go round in circles.
Yeah. Do you know nothing has ever worked the first time in human history? It's never happened. Planes didn't work the first time. Cars didn't work the first time. Agriculture didn't work the first, 1,000 years? Do you guys ever use WD-40? Yes. Do you know why it's called WD-40? You are gold, my dear. Disbursement formula number 40. It took Norm Larson 40 attempts to get it right. That's really serious Wile E. Coyote level, work there. But what I've got to tell you is WD-39 was shit.
I don't know if we've got another 36 times to get through it, though. So we've got to make it happen.
What? Keep going. This thing about, are you on the right side of history? Is it the right thing to do? Is it the right side of history? Will we get there eventually? If the answer is yes, then this game is played by people who are persistent. That's the way I think this works. We need to make it easier, but in the meantime, we just need to be more, I know this is right, I've just got to find the Wile E. Coyote combination that this pays off. Does that make some sense? Anything else? How are we for time? Good? Oh, beautiful. Let's do this all day. I'm loving it.
How are we going?
Any other questions or thoughts?
I've got sorry, me again. So you mentioned...
I think I love you already.
Oh, I feel the same. What are you doing later?
I know.
Yeah.
There's a connection.
I think so. So intellectual property, you mentioned that briefly. Have you shored up the Japanese IP? I think I'd like to know your feeling on this, but one of the areas that we're pretty poor in Australia is protecting our intellectual property.
Yeah, that's right.
So we tend to say, oh, but if I patent it, everyone will know. Like it's
right.
open and transparent and everyone will know what I'm doing. But yet it also protects people from copying you.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the ultimate in transparency that we're all trying to get to could also be embracing patenting. So, for example, China is not the country necessarily that's ripping off inventions all the time. They have the highest rate of patents in the world.
That's right.
It is incredible. So what's your view around IP protection and that sort of cultural value in Australia?
I've got a couple of things. I actually tried to patent an idea once and it was such a horrendous freaking process. I thought, you know what, just have it. I don't care anymore. Just have the thing. I think that you've got a right to protect your idea and you have a right to make a living from it for a limited period of time. But I don't think you can own something forever. If you look at the history of American aviation, what destroyed them was after the Wright brothers did the flight at Kitty Hawk, they then locked the flyer after 3 flights in a warehouse and spent the rest of their lives protecting every part of their invention. American aviation died at that point. So when World War I came along, the Yanks didn't have planes, which turned out to be a bit of an issue in World War I, right? So guess what? The Italians had them and the French had them. Every other industry said, why don't we share some of the IP so we can all get a little bit of action here. So I think it's important to be able to know what part of this am I prepared to share so I grow the industry as a goodwill thing, and what part of this do I need to protect for myself for a limited period of time, but then let the thing go. And I don't think we've worked out what that balance is yet. The thing that I patented, I'd spent about 3 years on, and this is so funny. When I handed over the paperwork and I handed over the document, the second it left my hands, and I'd paid like $10,000 to protect this thing, the second it left my hands, I had a better idea. And I thought, I'm going to be doing this forever, the way I see this. Sometimes, because we protect the old idea, it gets in the way of finding the new idea. So it's a tricky thing to get right. We have to share what we have to protect a little bit about it, and I'm not quite sure what the balance is. But I'd love to take that conversation further.
That's how they built the Concorde, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, that's right. But imagine getting into World War I saying to every other realist, can we borrow some planes, please, because we screwed our industry, because these two guys, who went bankrupt, by the way, doing it, they didn't share what we could have actually built industries out of. It's
Time
so
for
sad.
one more.
One more.
Jason, time
So
for
make it a
one.
ripper.
If
Come on,
there's
let's go.
one there, there's something over that
Let's
side,
make it
I
a
think.
beaut.
Yeah.
Here we go. Because
I've got
all
a
the
ripper-
heavy
I've got a
lifting's
ripper
been
for
over
you.
here. So what do we got here? Who's got a microphone?
I've got a ripper for you.
All right, good, go.
So you mentioned about these people in the middle who are doing, innovating and entrepreneurs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is it hard to teach people to be an entrepreneur? Because I suppose our business, we sit in the middle there.
Yeah.
And it is hard work.
Yeah,
And it takes grit.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to embrace failure.
yeah.
And it's difficult to teach people to embrace those sort of things. And I'm interested in your thoughts on how you teach people to
Well,
embrace it.
I've got a killer answer for that, and that is to start with the right raw material. So I need people who will explore unorthodox ideas and who will routinely question orthodox ideas. That's not everybody. But what percentage of the population do I need to be entrepreneurial? Like I'm thinking 1%, I'd be wrapped. That's more than enough. Do you know what I mean? So I don't need everybody to get it. Is it hard? It's hard teaching people who don't have faith in ideas. So people who've been brought up to be suspicious or careful or conservative, that's a real stretch. People that have been brought up, I don't know, in some sort of hippy-dippy commune, all I have to do is add some discipline to what they do and then we make the thing happen. So when I start with like kids, that's the other thing that makes it easier. When did we start getting narky about the world? It's not when we're 7, it's when we're 14. Everything shits us. Everything looks like it's a problem. What I do is I take that discontent and that irritation and that unhappiness and show them, just give them a couple of disciplines, business skills to turn their idea into a case. But then I find mentors from banking and finance and investment and angel supporters that will take these 15 and 16-year-olds right through to the market. So you start with the right raw material. It's easier than if you start with someone who simply doesn't want to be there. Did I answer your question?
That was a good answer.
Not bad, huh? All right. So that's it.
You do a good job.
Thank you, everybody. Good luck. See you later on. See you at the panel. Come to the panel. It's going to be great.